Are you still a Marxist? So you used to be a Marxist, but you're not now?
I immersed myself in those
but
things.
I'm also a 49ers fan,
Oh,
and
no.
so I'm
Oh,
just
starting
apologizing in
badly.
advance for what Christian McCaffrey and
no.
and Debo Samuel will
Trash
unleash
talk.
on your
Oh, my
Chiefs this
gosh.
Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. All right. Hashtag defund the police. Here's one. Here's the second one. The Chiefs are going to win by 10, at least.
Will you right now disavow the basic tenets of Marxism?
I'm a very proud Democrat.
I think most of my questions are designed to be yes or no. Are you still a Marxist?
Thank you for the question, Senator.
You don't have to thank me. We'll say
I
you are welcome.
I am not, nor have ever been, a Marxist.
Well, you gave an interview in 2000 to the feminist press. In fact, you didn't turn it over to us. We had to ask for it. We found it on our own. And you did then turn it over to us. And this is what you were describing your time working in a coffee shop. You said, quote, the kids would come into the cafe all the time. We'd talk about what they're doing. We'd talk about their classes. And I was in my Marxist phase. So you used to be a Marxist, but you're not now?
No, Senator, if I may, the context of the first of that interview, I had no idea that that interview was something that was going to be published. I did an interview with the
Did you mean what you said, whether it was published or not, or whether we'd find it? Trying to understand what you believe. You said I was in my Marxist phase.
Thank you, Senator.
Still in your Marxist phase, or was that in the past?
No, Senator, if I may explain.
Sure.
I was a political science major. When I graduated from college, I immersed myself in a ton of political theory. I read Hobbes, I read Locke, I read Rousseau, I read Marx. I went through a phase where I was into Eastern religion, where I read the Tao Te Ching, the Analects of Confucius. So I suspect, and I don't know that quote with the article, I don't know if she was referring to what I was studying at the time, but as a political science major and as a theorist and someone who was considering teaching a course in political theory, I immersed myself in those things.
But she didn't refer to anything. She, meaning, I assume you're referring to the reporter who interviewed. These are your words, and you didn't say I'm in my Hobbes phase. You didn't say, second, I'm in my Locke phase. I mean, you didn't say I'm in my Rousseau phase. You said I was in my Marxist phase, and my question is real simple. Are you still a Marxist?
Senator, I've never been a Marxist, and I'm not a Marxist today.
Okay. All right. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal bench trial?
No, Senator. With my experience as both a state prosecutor, as an in-house counsel at Schneider Electric, doing very complex compliance and regulatory work, and my work as a district court sitting judge, handling general jurisdiction.
Yes, ma'am. I've read your resume. I just want to get through these questions. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal jury trial?
No, Senator, I have not.
Okay. Have you ever attended a federal jury trial and
No,
watched
Senator.
it live?
No, Senator.
Have you ever watched a federal jury trial on TV?
I don't believe that federal trials are televised, so no, I have not, Senator.
Have you ever watched any trial on television?
Senator, I handle and preside over trials every single day as a state district court judge. We follow the rules of evidence, criminal procedure, civil procedure. So I feel that with my experience, that I am well suited and capable to make the transition from our state district court to our U.S. District Court.
Okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of evidence?
No, Senator. As a state prosecutor...
I'm sorry, you said what?
I said no, Senator.
No, okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of civil procedure?
Well, I believe that there were times at Schneider Electric giving advice to business units regarding the federal acquisition regulations, that I would draft briefs to give them counsel as to how to be compliant with the federal rules. So in that respect, the answer would be yes.
Okay. What's an interpleader action?
Interpleader action is a third party who's going to intervene in a civil suit. They're not a primary party.
Okay. What's voir dire?
Voir dire is the process with which jurors are questioned by the state and by defense and prosecutors to serve on a
Have you
panel.
ever conducted a voir dire in federal court?
Not in federal court.
Okay.
Judge DuBose, I want to come to you. I know that there's been discussion about you saying that using the I was in a Marxist phase and an explanation for that. Do you understand why that causes us pause?
Thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, it does. And I have to say, when I was given a copy of that article yesterday, I was shocked. I had no idea. When I read the article, I couldn't understand the context. If you had that opportunity to read it, there were some things that were placed in quotes. There were some points where the student was writing about herself. So I, as I sit here today, don't even recall having that.
As
making
you
that comment.
sit here today, will you right now disavow the basic tenets of Marxism?
As I mentioned, Senator, I am not, nor
Is
I've
it
ever
yes or
been.
no?
I am not a Marxist. I do not espouse Marxist theory or ideology. I never have. I never will. I'm a very proud Democrat here and part of a Democrat. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Booker,
I'm a passer.
Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff.
Given what we have going on the floor, Mr. Chairman, I'll submit some questions for the record. Thank you.
Senator Butler,
The same, Chair. There's a number of things happening, and I pass and will submit questions to the nominees later.
Senator Welch.
I pass as well.
Mr. Ali, my advice to most young people who think they might someday want to be a judge is don't put anything in writing, because the Senate Judiciary Committee is going to read it and draw their conclusions as to who you really, really are. We have had some nominees who have produced poetry, which some members of the committee have judged proof positive that they are Marxist. So I'm prepared for almost any conclusion. You've submitted numerous amicus briefs over the course of your career as a litigator, and on some of those briefs you've been joined by organizations from across the political spectrum, including the Cato Institute. Speak about some of the issues you've worked on that seem to bring together unusual political allies, as well as why you think these issues are so important.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that part of my advocacy. And that has been in a role as advocate, which I understand is fundamentally different than the role I've been nominated here for today. I am, in my role as an advocate, really proud of the work we've been able to do to build bridges and build coalitions on issues mostly related to government accountability. And as you noted, Senator, it's been with organizations like the Cato Institute. It's been with the support and working closely with law enforcement organizations. It's been with organizations, even the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Second Amendment Foundation, and other organizations that people sometimes would be surprised to know could come together and argue in favor of a more just system in that advocacy.
Judge Harjani, you were one of the lead trial counsels in U.S. versus Kosia, which was the first case in this country to prosecute a trader for commodity spoofing and flash trading. It is not uncommon for members of the committee to query nominees about points of law and areas of law. And I would hate to be tested on the issue of commodity spoofing. But since this was a case in your background, could you describe it to this committee?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I had the great privilege while being an assistant United States attorney to do the first trial prosecution involving flash trading or spoofing, which is essentially a commodities fraud scheme whereby individual traders will input trades that are not meant to be executed, that are meant to be canceled in order to dupe other traders from putting in orders and trading. And as a result, the schemer is taking the opposite side of the trade. So they push prices up, they make a profit. If they push prices down, they make a profit. And it essentially is a way to play with the markets and to play with supply and demand in a legal way because it's done not to execute trades, but to trick others. I was very grateful to be a trial lawyer in that case, received convictions on all counts against the defendant and a sentence of imprisonment. And as you've noted, Senator, I've devoted my life to protecting victims of investment fraud. I have felt very strongly that victims need their day in court, their voices need to be heard, and that is the duty of prosecutors to protect them. And that was my career before I joined the bench, and I'm very grateful to have that opportunity. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Yoon, members often question nominees based on their background as to whether they come with a bias toward defense, a bias toward prosecution. In the course of your practice, you've worked on both sides, both tables. Tell me a little bit about the issue of bias and why those who appear before you, should you become district court judge, which I believe you will, can feel that they have a chance.
Thank you for the opportunity, Senator. In my career, I had the great privilege of working both ends of the aisle, being a defense attorney as well as a federal prosecutor. I've also worked in the areas of both civil and criminal law. If you look at my record, you will see that I have always served my clients fairly and impartially and was a zealous advocate for all of them. With that, I also understand the great responsibility of our judges to be fair and impartial and make decisions without fear or favor. Should I be so fortunate to be confirmed, I will look to my vast experience in both areas and will make sure that anyone who comes before me in the courtroom will have a fair shake.
So just to set the table here, you're the president and executive director of the MacArthur Justice Center. Is that correct?
Senator, that's correct. I have one other disclosure for you, which is that I'm also a 49ers fan.
Oh,
and
no.
So I'm just
starting
apologizing in
quickly.
advance for what Christian McCaffrey and DuBose Samuel will
Trash
unleash
talk.
on your
Oh, my
Chiefs
gosh.
this Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. All right. I'll come back to that. So let's just clarify some things you said to Senator Graham. So your organization, the MacArthur Justice Center, has expressed support in the past for the defund the police movement. I'm looking here at public statements, public comments that the organization has made, calling for defunding the police, hashtag defund the police. Here's one. Here's the second one. I know you're familiar with these. And I thought I heard you say to Senator Graham that you disagree with this, that you do not support defund the police. I just want to make sure I got that right.
Senator, that's right. I have never taken that position, nor would I, for any number of reasons. One of which I'd like to say is that I work closely with law enforcement on these issues of accountability, public safety, and confidence in law enforcement.
Okay, good. So to the extent that the center has in the past taken this position, that does not reflect your views and doesn't reflect your leadership. Is that fair to say?
That's right. So much so that I looked into that and tried to figure out how that hashtag, I understand there was an article describing 2 tweets that had been made, looked into that, and I'm still to this day puzzled how that happened. But they were before my time as executive director.
Well, you say puzzled why the center expressed those views? Is that what you're saying?
To my knowledge, the center itself has never taken the position of defund the police.
Okay, and you disagree with that position. You disagree with the defund the police position. Okay, let me ask you about something else I think Senator Graham was touching on. My understanding is that the MacArthur Center asked the Chicago State Attorney's Office to dismiss all the charges against rioters following the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. Do I have that right? And if so, do you agree with that?
Senator, my understanding of that circumstance is that the attorneys in that office, I wasn't a part of that office at the time, represented individuals who were peaceful protesters and represented community groups. And so that letter took place in the course of advocacy that I wasn't personally involved in, so I'm not intimately familiar with the fact.
Okay, you would not support, though, dismissing charges against rioters who committed acts of vandalism, violence, etc., as a general matter?
Senator, I believe that people who are a risk to public safety need to be accountable and need to be held pending those charges if they're a risk to public safety. And I understand the law to require that.
Let me ask you, since you said pending, my understanding is the MacArthur Center also opposes pretrial detention. Is that right?
Senator, so let me be very clear. I believe that if somebody is a risk to public safety, they should be held. And federal law requires that. The Bail Reform Act requires that, in addition to some other considerations. And if confirmed to be a federal district court judge, I would apply that law without reservation.
So
Why?
I got you. So just the center, though, am I wrong? They don't oppose. Your center does not oppose pretrial detention. Am I wrong about that?
Senator, there's no categorical opposition to pretrial detention, as I understand it. The United States Supreme Court has been very clear that someone cannot be detained solely on account of their poverty. But to my knowledge, the Justice Center's position has been that if someone is found to be a risk to public safety, then detention is warranted under the law.
And what about the use of electronic monitoring of defendants? Does the MacArthur Center oppose that?
Senator, again, my understanding of federal law is that the supervised release provision.
Well, but I'm asking about the center, though. I'm familiar with federal law, but the center that you're the executive director of, I just want to clarify. I want to make sure I understand what your positions are.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Senator. So I haven't personally worked on a case involving electronic monitoring. I can tell you that the center is not a policy organization. We don't have a single employee in our organization who takes policies. All of our work is grounded in litigation, in a client.
Okay, let me ask you, I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean, I do mean to interrupt you, but I don't mean to be rude about it. I'm almost out of time. Let me just ask you this. The director, as I understand it, of your Illinois office referred to electronic monitoring as replacing one form of incarceration with another. Does that reflect your views or the views of your organization? How about, does it reflect your views? Let's just get to that.
Senator, I'm not sure I fully understand what that would mean under federal law. I can tell you that the Bail Reform Act, the Sentencing Reform Act, and the supervised release provision require supervision in certain circumstances, first and foremost, when there is a risk to public safety and a need to protect the public.
Well, my time's expired, and I know that there are other colleagues here who want to ask you questions. I appreciate your answers. This is helpful. My concern has been that the center that you're the executive director of seems to take positions to me that seem, frankly, a little extreme. So maybe those aren't your positions. I'll give you some more questions for the record. I was so nice to you, even though you're a 49ers fan. It's horrible. But the Chiefs, I know I was really nice. The Chiefs are going to win by 10, at least. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll watch together.